Hello, I'm Isaac Keith Martinez, and welcome to Isaac's Haunted Beard. Hey, check it out, I got a haunted visit from my friend Travis here.
Hi.
Hey, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're going to talk about definitive monster movies today. So, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about what I regard as definitive monster movies, and then I'm going to ask you for your opinion of what you think some of them are.
Okay.
And then I'm going to lead to a topic where I'm not so certain about, and then I'm going to ask for your opinion.
All right.
All right, let's do it. Okay, what's a definitive monster movie? As you know, there's all kinds of monsters in the world of horror. And within those categories of monsters, there's all these movies that they're in. And although there's some that are really famous and some that aren't so famous, there's always one that always sticks out as the one. And you know that it's the one when you bring up this topic to someone and you go, hey, what's your favorite this kind of movie, or what's your favorite that kind of movie? And, or if you just ask someone, name a, kind of movie, they usually have the same answer. So I'll give you an example, okay? Like, for instance, a famous kind of monster. Like, let's start with vampires. When I say vampires, what's the first vampire movie you think of?
First movie I think of would be The Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys. Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. Do you have a favorite Corey?
Feldman.
Me too. High five. Okay, so the thing about that answer is, for starters, there is no wrong answer. However, if you say Lost Boys and you ask somebody else and they say Dracula, the guy who says Dracula's not wrong. It's just that's the first movie that they think of. And I feel that there are a collection of titles that are very, very popular and famous, and they are regarded as the definitive movies of that genre. So it would be a shock to no one if someone said The Lost Boys or Fright Night or Dracula. But then it's unlikely that they're going to say a very obscure title, because that seems to be something that more like advanced horror nerds would know about. So it doesn't really qualify as a definitive title. Like, what's something that everyone knows about? So let's try this again. Okay, like I'm gonna go first this time.
All right.
Okay, werewolves. When I think of werewolf movies, I personally think that the definitive werewolf movie is An American Werewolf in London. Now, I know we've established in the other episodes that you visited that you don't watch that many horror films. Have you ever seen An American Werewolf in London?
No.
That is a great film from 1981. It features, it shows a man transform into a werewolf in full light, which is uncommon for werewolf movies because usually it's done in the shadows in the dark, and so, but that one it just looks painful and it looks gross, and it's just awesome. and it's a funny movie. It's funny. It's got funny parts in it. When I think of zombie movie, what do you think? What's the definitive zombie movie?
Have to say Night of the Living Dead.
I would agree. Night of the Living Dead. I think that's the template. That's the one that they're all kind of based on. The whole like slow moving zombies, and I think it all started with Night of the Living Dead. Even like those large monsters, like I know the Japanese call them kaiju, but here in America, just anything where like a huge monster attacks the city. I think that there's actually two particular ones that would be regarded as the definitive big monster. What would you be like the most definitive big monster movie?
Godzilla.
I would say the same thing. Godzilla or King Kong. I think those are
King Kong.
Those are the two. Those are the two like most famous ones. Okay, so now that we've established what defines a definitive monster movie, there's something that I noticed recently that was kind of not bothering me, but I found it curious. Witches. Witches are a famous monster, not only that monster, but you know what I mean by monster. It's part of the horror and the Halloween lore. that I find myself going, well, what's a definitive witch movie? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they make too many witch movies. Like, for starters, I was thinking, well, I mean, could The Wizard of Oz be the definitive witch movie? I mean, after all, there's multiple witches in it, but at the same time, I was leaning more towards thinking that it doesn't count because it's not a horror film. So, no. So, once again, I gotta ask myself, what's the definitive witch movie?
What about Hocus Pocus?
Okay. Then we go on to The Witches of Eastwick. It's got the word witches in the title. There's 3 witches, actually. And once again, I'm going to disqualify it because as a horror fan, I'm leaning towards horror movies only. So no, I'm going to disqualify the Witches of Eastwick, which still leads me to ask, excuse me, what's the definitive witch movie?
Still think Hocus Pocus.
The next witch movie that I would like to bring up is The Craft. Now, The Craft is arguably a horror film, but I think it qualifies. I think that it's not a scary horror film, and it's definitely kind of geared towards teens, but I think that, let's put it this way, if you were in like a video store, I think you'd find it in the horror section. But do horror fans embrace The Craft as the be-all, end-all of witch movies? I don't really think so. I think it almost feels like it might, I mean, granted, I haven't seen it in a while. I wouldn't doubt if it's kind of dated, because it's like a 90s, teenage girls kind of, I want to say no. So it still leads me to ask, what's the definitive witch movie?
How about Hocus Pocus?
So, hey, there's always The Blair Witch Project. That's another movie with the word witch in the title, and it's a very famous horror film. It's also a horror film that I know that other people aren't defense on. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I like it, but even though it's a horror film, I'm going to disqualify it just because it has the word witch in the title, and a witch is a very big part of the plot. Spoiler alert, I mean, like, you're not seeing that film by now. Come on. Everyone's seen The Blair Witch Project, and we all know there's no witch in The Blair Witch Project. There's not even a witch in the Hip Hop Witch Project. The movie is horrible. So it leads, I don't even know if I got the title right. If you ever get a chance to watch that one, don't. So it leads me to I gotta ask, if it's not The Blair Witch Project, what is the definitive witch movie?
I gotta say Hocus Pocus.
Okay. Hey, did you know Rob Zombie, the rock and roll star of White Zombie / Solo fame, who made such classic films as House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects and the Halloween remakes, he made a witch movie. It's called The Lords of Salem. Okay, personally, I like that movie. I think it's very cool. I'll tell you why I'm not going to qualify it as the definitive witch movie. It's not old enough for people to even really make up their mind how they feel about it yet. That's the thing. When you make a movie and it just comes, and it's like brand new, it just comes out, people don't know yet if they love it or they hate it. Like, granted, opinions are formed right away, but a movie has to age before it has a history. So once again, I'm going to disqualify Lords of Salem, which leads me to ask, what's the definitive witch movie?
Hocus Pocus.
Personally, my favorite witch in a movie, even though it's not a witch movie, is the witch in the movie Pumpkinhead. I love, she's like a hag and she lives in this like shack in the woods. I think she is terrific, and she's the kind of witch that I'd want to have an entire movie about. But Pumpkinhead's actually more about the monster, not the witch. So I'm going to disqualify Pumpkinhead. So once again, I gotta ask, what's the definitive witch movie?
I gotta say Hocus Pocus, man.
I was thinking that there was no witch movie that would be the definitive witch movie. And then the other day I revisited a film that I've seen a bunch of times that I love, but granted, I will admit to you, it's been a long time since I watched it, and I knew that witches were a part of it, but it's been so long I kind of forgot how important they were to the plot, and I was so like falling in love with the movie all over again that not only was I a huge fan of the movie when it was done like all over again, but I officially went, oh my god, I finally found what I regard as the definitive witch movie. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my opinion, I humbly submit to you, that the definitive witch movie, I dare anyone to suggest otherwise, is, I'm going to show you the DVD, but the way the picture is so small, I don't know if it's going to pop up on the screen very well. Dario Argento's Suspiria. Okay, real fast. If you've not seen it, it is a movie about a dancer who travels to, I think it's Rome, I could be wrong, and she attends a ballet academy, and it's not a ballet academy, it's a witch's coven! Wow! That's amazing! These witches, they're all, we have this house, this building that we occupy, and heavens forbid anyone would find out about our witchcraft. Let's disguise it as a ballerina school. Okay, so, that is great, right? So that means that, and in the film they establish, it's like the top ballerina school. Okay, so not only are they witches, they're witches that are good at ballet. Of course, they just put a spell on themselves, and all of a sudden they're great at ballet, right? They could have been great at anything. They're like, what should we be good at if we're gonna make this ballet? Do you all agree? Ballet. We have 3, 4, 5. We have 7 votes for ballet. Let's do ballet. Because they're women. Women love ballet. So they do ballet, and they teach the school, and then girls come to the school, and sometimes they disappear because they sacrifice these girls so that they can, there's something about like the blood or whatever. I'm doing such a terrific job of explaining the film. Keeps them youthful, because they're hundreds of years old. But I love the idea that even though that's the reason they lure girls in, you can't just say you have a ballet school and not teach ballet. So that means that they actually have to actively teach ballet to these girls. And because it's the top school, it means they're good at it. So, some girls come to the school and they die. And then other girls go to the school and get a terrific education in ballet. And they go on to become, professional ballerinas. And they're like, I graduated from the school of ballet. And then, I love the idea, years later, they're like, you came from what school? Yeah, that's the one that was the witch's coven. What are you talking about? Yeah, it was exposed as a witch's coven. It was all a front for witches. What? That's crazy! For real though, those witches are great dancers. They're great. Dario Argento is Italian horror filmmaker / genius / crazy person / visionary. Suspiria is a beautiful film, and I mean that literally because it has a lot of vivid colors. It has an amazing soundtrack / score by the band Goblin, and in this film they might go by Goblins. And it's just cinematically perfect. And guess what? It's part of a trilogy. It's known as the Three Mothers trilogy. So after Suspiria, you can check out a film called Inferno. And years later, he finished the trilogy with the very graphically violent Mother of Tears. Alright, and that's my opinion of the definitive witch movie. I think it is Suspiria. End of story.
I think you gotta consider Hocus Pocus, man.
What is it with you and Hocus Pocus?
Okay, when I think of witches, I think of the classic Halloween riding broomsticks. They ride broomsticks in Hocus
They ride broomsticks in Hocus Pocus?
They use cauldrons
They
to make
use
spells,
cauldrons for their spells?
and they're hideously ugly.
And they're
they scare
hideously
children.
ugly? And they
Yes.
scare children?
Yes.
Sold. Hocus Pocus, ladies and gentlemen. That's the definitive witch movie. Don't forget to subscribe to Isaac's Haunted Beard on YouTube. Subscribe to Isaac's Haunted Beard blog on isaacshauntedbeard.blogspot.com, and follow Isaac's Haunted Beard on Twitter at Isaac's Haunted B. I'm Isaac. This is
Travis.
goodbye.